What's up, everyone? Welcome to From the Ground Up. I'm your host, Mike Cadet, loan officer from the Cadet Mortgage Team at Cross Country Mortgage. And on the show, we dive into lifestyle tips, current events, real estate insights, and valuable advice for first-time home buyers. But today, we're going to have a special guest. His name is Chris Thomas. He's a good friend of mine, and he's going to be here to share his journey on restarting his real estate speculation business. So stay tuned for an insightful conversation. It's going to be packed with some practical tips and real estate advice and some real world experience. So let's get started. Journey. This is my boy Chris Thomas over here. Um, and we're just gonna have a cool little conversation about, my man Chris and what he got going on right now. But Chris, man, can you just briefly introduce yourself and just kind of give us a little bit of background, um, or just give your background in real estate and just kind of what your journey's been all about.
All right, gladly. What's up, everybody? My name is Chris Thomas. I'm a good friend of Mike's, and him and I kind of have a shared history when it comes to this real estate journey. I'm a big fan of property. My mother was a real estate appraiser, so even as a child, I'd sit next to her as as we drove around Los Angeles and Orange County, appraising properties, photographing comps, and doing all things real estate. She was also an agent and a broker. She's a very determined woman. So that gave me an understanding of property and how a person could utilize property to gain financial freedom, so to speak. Right. So that started a journey of me trying to learn as much as I can in the property business. So from there, I became a foreclosure specialist. I also did real estate appraisal myself. I got into some contracting and construction all through college. After college, I worked at the mortgage store as a production assistant to a processor. Then I became a processor one, then a processor two, then a dock drawer, then a junior underwriter. Then I worked at Regions Bank or for Regions Bank as a processor. Then I worked as an assistant to an account executive, and really learned, how they really eat. They eat.
They get some good money, no? Yeah, man. They sit in a lucrative chair for sure.
Yeah. And then from there, I started my own property acquisitions business. But in Los Angeles at the time, even the average property in the hood was $500,000, $600,000. So I moved
And
to Nashville.
what around what year are we talking?
2004, 2005,
Okay.
2004, 2004, 2005. And we got some properties and so I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, because, I saw the upswing of what that could be, but it was also, like I said, Nashville, Tennessee, that was, coming from Los Angeles, that was that was a place where property was affordable. You can find some delinquent property there for the price of a starter Benz, $40,000, $60,000, things of that nature.
Wow.
Do the reconstruction, sell it for 120, 160, et cetera, et cetera. So we did that, and also got a couple properties in Atlanta. And this was all happening right before the crash of 2008, 2007, 2008. And that was a funny situation too, because that's around the time I got to Nashville, that's when I met Mike, and we had a huge group of friends that we wanted to put something together, but Mike was the the one that was kind of he understood the dynamics of property, and other guys they had their own thing, you know what I mean? And so me and Mike kind of linked up, and he was right there with me every step of the way. And then the crash came, and that was a funny situation because Mike and I were both working for a private lender, Sunset Mortgage in Franklin, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he remembers just like I remember, we were working and we might have a file and we might need to try to lock the loan, lock the rate, right? Before when you're dealing with a mortgage file, you have to lock the rate, right? Percent or whatever. And so we call the company and we're like, hey, I'd like to lock the rate on the Johnson file. And they'd be like, well, sorry, bud, we can't do that because we closing our doors.
We out of business.
We out of business. Like, damn, for real? Okay.
Right.
So then, at that time we got several lenders that we dealing with. So we go to the next best lender, sir, I'd like to lock the rate on the Johnson file. And they'd be like, well, sir, we out of business today. We're going to close our doors. And
man, I just talked to you like yesterday. Like, what
yeah,
happened?
right. And one by one, that we saw that happening. And my primary goal was to go to Nashville, make a couple flips, get some income property if possible, then come back to Los Angeles where where you can get into a property for $500,000, but you put in, $30,000 of work and that's just worth $800,000, So,
so I mean,
so
what kind of inspired you to want to go and I mean at that time back in like 2004, 2005, like what inspired you to want to go into real estate over any other investment that might be available at that time, I guess?
Well, think about property, to me, I think property is king, right? Land is king. Like with property comes power, right? Nobody can do anything on a piece of land without the permission of the owner, and you're literally buying, in my opinion, if you have a lot of property in a particular area, then you have a lot of power in that particular area. And also, it was also a way that I learned was a way that a man can really make a significant income and also own his time. I was never, I think by the time I was about 24, 25 years old, I had over 70 different jobs, all different sales jobs or retail jobs or all types of stuff. That was by 24. I always kept like 3 jobs at a time, hustles and stuff. And so by that time I learned, I kind of got burnt out in that way of life. I realized that you don't necessarily have to exchange your time for money.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that property is a way for a man, without a degree, all you need to have is the knowledge and the startup capital. And, you can make a good life for yourself. You can make a good life for your family. You can make a good life for your family's family. You can make it's one way to create generational wealth. And that was something I was conscious of back then because, I definitely want to leave a good legacy on this earth. And as far as I see, property is one way to do it. Plus, I like building. I like doing construction. I like getting my hands dirty. Yeah, it seemed like it was almost kind of a destiny thing because I'm riding around as a child with my mother doing her real estate appraisals. I'm learning about the business. And then in high school, I took technical drafting, which is, architectural design. Eventually, I took technical drafting, learned to do drafting machines. Even when I was a kid, when I had Legos, I never really built the thing on the Lego box. I would just make houses and stuff like that. I would draw houses. I would just, do that kind of a thing. So like, it seemed like it was something, I just gravitated towards it. And then I worked with some people as a foreclosure specialist. I had a cousin. Well, my mother got married to a guy, and then through that marriage, I met some cousins, and I had a cousin who was really cool to me. He dropped out of, he dropped out of school in the 8th grade. I mean, he could barely read, but he had about 200 properties and he was taking care of his family. I mean, he would do stuff like I was working at his office, basically speculating foreclosures, right? You know, he'd have a, and you know, they just sat there cracking jokes all day, and they'd work too. And their office was just one of their houses. And you know, he'd pass me you know, a contract at 10:03 and be like, "Hey, Chris, you know, why don't you fill this out for me?" And you know how I hate reading. And I would think to myself, like, this man, you know, who showed up in his Corvette, who's dressed clean, you know,
To
who's
this day.
got 200 property, you know, is passing me a piece of paper because he hates reading, and who dropped out of school in the 8th grade, you know. And so I saw that. I saw a man who was able to drop out of school in the 8th grade, create a good life for his family, and his brother did the same thing. And their father was kind of a legendary dude in LA. You know, in LA with the older black men that did well for themselves, it's kind of a small community. They all know each other, you know. And so I learned about their father through my friend's father. You know, they all live in the same neighborhood. They live in Windsor Hills or Ladera Heights or Baldwin Hills, things like that. And so I saw it as a good way to earn income passively. And the active part of earning the income was fun to me too. I just, you know, I hopped in my truck and with a good friend of mine, we just drove around to distressed properties, knocking on doors, practicing our sales abilities, right? Saying, you know, in so many words, how much do you owe? How much will you walk away for? Packaging those deals, trying to shop them out to investors. You know, just for me and for many other people, I think property is a way. You know, there's many other ways now, but this is, you know, the internet's in its infant stages at that time, and you know, as far as earning and owning your own time, you know, that's an important thing for me. So that's what I think attracted me.
So what initially got you interested more specifically in like real estate speculation?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, what they called it back then is specking, right?
Okay.
Short for speculation. And that's basically, um, as like I said, you know, I went to college and did all that stuff, but like I said, I worked for men who, you know, dropped out of school in the 8th grade, and I saw their incomes, and so I learned it from them. You know, we take a lead, and we do our due diligence and find out if the lead is actually a deal, which really means that there's probably some equity to gain from it. And then I enjoyed being in my car, you know, with a friend, driving to all these different parts of town, being on my own time. You know, I mean, I was working, you know, a good specker does 20 properties a day, and practicing my sales pitch. And I just saw myself, I was like, this is something I could do every day. I don't mind doing this. I don't mind driving around the streets of LA and being with friends, and, you know, and dressing clean, and, you know, trying to create a deal out of a deal, you know.
Right.
And the guys that I work for, you know, the guys that I work for, they didn't really work for anybody. You know, they worked for themselves. Uh, uh, you know, they worked every day, but they just did things on their own accord, and they didn't have any bosses. And you know, that's exciting to me. That type of lifestyle is appealing to me. So the lifestyle, I think, is what was appealing to me. I like the idea of maybe earning a good amount of money and just kind of being with my business partner, dressed clean in a suit and knocking on doors and testing my wits. You know, it was challenging at times. I knock on the door, and you know, and also I feel like, you know, there's a lot of people who it's a good way to make money, but it's also a good way to help people. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
So I think
You
a
know,
lot
once
of
a
people
person
forget
is,
like why we do this stuff is like it is at the end of the day like helping someone, you know.
yeah. Like, you know, some people, I noticed that there's a void in that business for help. You know what I'm saying? And there's a void there, and I always thought you could still make money and help people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so you know, when I would meet these people, I'd knock on their doors. I'd be the 10th person to do this. And I noticed the people were already sick of it. You know, some people would come out with the shotgun, you know, and they'd be like, you know, you're trying to take my house. And, you know, I enjoyed overcoming those objections. Uh, and yeah, I am here to profit, you know, I'm not here for free. And I'd be very clear about that. You know, this ain't no charity. Um, but I'm your best option, right? Because what's going to happen is the homeowner is going to lose their property to the state. You know, they're going to have they're going to have the foreclosure mark on their credit report. They won't be able to get a car loan or an apartment or anything like that. So, uh, and these are these people's homes. These are their nests. They build memories here. So, I noticed that, you know, it'd be ideal if a person was able to show up to their house and offer them something to get on their feet in exchange for the property. And there's a lot of investors that aren't doing that. They're just paying the delinquent amount, sending the person on their way, you know? And I think that I can do that a little bit different than them. I have this whole plan of mixing that with fire and water restoration. And kind of trying to be like the wolf in Pulp Fiction. Remember Pulp Fiction?
Of course.
Remember
Yeah,
the character, the wolf?
oh yeah, man.
Yeah, he just showed up.
Call him, you
I
fix
kind of
the
want to
problems.
incorporate that. Yeah, I want to incorporate
Call the
that
wolf.
in the property at the
He'll
same
clean
time.
up everything
You
for you,
know?
and he'll get rid of the body.
Yeah. And then furthermore, there was this one job I had that was really wild. It was fire and water restoration. And I was just talking about this with somebody, and the job was to show up at a home that's on fire, right? I had a police scanner. I learned there's a fire on 80th and Western, and there were only about 12 guys in the whole city that did this. So I'd see the same 12 guys at every property, right?
Yeah.
And it's sounds bad. We'd all show up to that spot. We develop a pecking order, and then we'd have to literally approach the person right after either while it's
Traumatic
on fire
event
or like
just
right
occurred.
after they put it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we would have to try to get the contract to do the reconstruction. And it was a very challenging job, and it seemed heartless. It was heartless. But there's a way to do that with heart. You know, you really do have the opportunity to really
yeah. I mean, it's
into
hard to like, help people understand that, people need help in a distress situation, and someone got to come through and help them, and
yeah.
unfortunately, it's
And
like the people who solve, the biggest problems get paid money, I mean, whether that's you needing an open heart surgery or, you getting, rescued from a burning building, you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah,
that's just kind of the way our system works, is that there's some type of monetary, connection to it. Um, so I mean,
yeah, and there's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that.
right. I don't believe there's anything wrong with that. And I mean,
Oh no. Solving problems, you deserve to be compensated for your efforts. But you can, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to always I mean, that's my opinion, you know. If I'm gonna do work for you, I'm gonna solve some problems for you, you know, then I'd like to be compensated, you know. And in that case, it was just done in such a way that made you feel whack about it. You know what I mean?
right.
The last one I did, right? This is pre uh this is pre Google Earth Maps or whatever. So like when I get close to the destination, I'd have to like stick my head out of the window and smell where the fire is coming from. I'd literally have to follow my nose to get to the fire.
Hmm.
So there was one day where I did that. I smelt the fire. I was going home and I smelt the fire and I followed my nose and I got to the fire and there was nobody there, but I saw the house smoking.
Yeah.
And then I saw some people across the street and I was like, did anybody call 911? They're like, no. I was like, well, get your ass in the house and call 911. And I banged on the front door. Nobody answered. So I jumped on the wall and I scaled the wall to the back and I went to the back door and I banged on that door and I banged on the windows. I just kicked and banged. And then the door opened and the fire was on the right side of the house, but there was an elderly couple on the left side of the house. They was in there, they didn't even know that the fire was happening. So we
Wow.
got them out of the house. Uh, you know, I, saved the day, so to speak, right? So at the end, I was thinking to myself, because I hadn't really cracked the deal yet in that business. And the rips are good, right? You get like 30K, 40K, you get like 30% of the 30% of the construction costs, basically, right?
Okay.
But there's only so many rips. There's only so many of those that you get each year. But either way, I remember getting there thinking to myself, like, well, I could crack a deal out of this, you know what I mean? And so at the end, afterwards, the people came up to me and they were like, oh, there's the guy right there. That's the one who helped us out. That's the one that got us out the house.
Pretty much saved
And
my
I was
life.
like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, yeah. Like, man, oh, that's great, man. Is there anything we can do? Say thank you. And I was like, well, property's on fire and whatnot. Why don't you give me the opportunity to rebuild this up for you? Why don't you, let me get the like when everything's all settled and you get it all together.
Sure.
Let me let me compete for the business. Give me a chance to do that. And they were immediately like, nah. We got a cousin for that.
Wow.
But thanks.
Thanks for saving
But
my
after
life.
that,
I got oxygen in my lungs because
yeah,
of you,
I was like,
thank you. Thank you, but no thank you.
yeah.
So it sounds like,
Yeah, so after
obviously,
that,
with any aspect of real estate, real estate is a very attractive industry and attracts people for many different reasons. But and in
yeah,
every facet of real estate, there's difficulties, what I mean? But there's also successes, So
right.
you share with me like any type of successes that you've had through your speculation journey, and then also share any type of failures that you may have had to overcome.
Well, I know this for a fact. I remember one specific moment when I was in Nashville, and I bought this house, and there was all types of trouble dealing with this house. The loan was difficult. The loan was like it was refund only. I didn't have a lot of money. I was working a $15 an hour job.
A
I thought that
refund
I
only?
could submit.
What's a refund only loan?
So we buy the property, and then there's, let's say the property costs 40,000, and we do a loan for 60,000, and property was purchased for 40, and then 20,000 was put in an escrow account. That's all. And I didn't know this at the time, but in order to do the construction, it was a reimbursement only loan. So you had to kind of pay for everything yourself. Then an inspector came out, and
Yeah.
then he checked it out. They reimbursed you, right? But that was I didn't know. I was young. I was 22, 23 or something like that in that business. I didn't expect that was the case. I mean, I didn't, whatever. I messed up in that area,
He was new in the
and I didn't
business,
have any
man.
startup capital.
He was new, getting
Yeah,
experience.
yeah. And I was told by, some of my mentors in that area that I could basically, submit a request to get, 15% of the funds up front to begin the project.
Right.
But that couldn't happen with me. And I didn't even have enough money to really do the project the right way, but we made it work. But there was a moment after some of these difficulties that I was in the back of the house. I had a little pickup truck, a little GMC Cheyenne. I purchased a bunch of, I had my tools, and then from the back of the truck, I was sitting there. I had one twisted up, and I had a guy on the roof doing something, and I had a plumber over here doing something, and I had another electrician over there doing something, and I was just sitting in the back of the house, just thinking. And I remember at that moment, sitting down saying to him, oh, and I had a check in my hand for 5,000, that I just got paid for doing some of the work. And I remember sitting there being like, oh, this is it for me. This is
This is
exactly what I
sweet.
want to do.
You got a
I
taste.
love it. I'm sitting there, I got workers up there working, you know what I mean? I jumped through a bunch of hoops, but I'm sitting there in this truck, and I got this check in my hand for 5 racks, from a guy, it doesn't come from anything. And that was a good feeling for me, man. And I remember right then in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna be a developer, straight up. I'm
How
saying?
would
This is what
you
I'm gonna do.
how would you describe that feeling that you're sitting back, you're in the back of the house, you're seeing this whole house being constructed. under your leadership and you're just like, wow, it just kind of hits you. You know what I mean? Like like, can you try to describe that in like a few
Yeah,
sentences?
it was like
What's that like?
expansive, hopeful. It was like, expansive. It was hopeful. It was prideful, like in a good way. Like I felt proud for getting that done, for taking a risk too, man, because
Right.
I had a good job in LA and I left. And not only did I have a good job in LA, maybe 3 weeks or so after I left, I get a call from a girlfriend in college who was bad, bro. Like this Indian girl, Reef, like whatever. She's bad, bro. But she moved out there for me to surprise me. She's like, she calls me like, I'm in LA. I'm like, oh shit,
Just left.
I'm in Nashville.
Right.
Gone. That's what I used to do. Like I
Right.
would say goodbye to people because I'm back in a year or something. Like they'd be like, "Where Chris at?" Oh, he's in Nashville. Like he's not gonna say bye. I'm like, for what? I'm gonna see you. I'll be back in a couple months. It'll
And
be all
this
right.
is in what, around
Uh,
like 2005, 2004?
oh, it's 2000, yeah, four-ish, I think,
About
something
2004
like
or
that.
so. Okay.
2000, 2005. Yeah. 2004, 2005, or something like that. When I went to Nashville, and I risked it. I risked it all. I just, my goal I always had the idea that you, instead of paying school to teach you something, you can always get a job and they'll pay you to learn. You know what I mean? So
Right.
as a processor, I learned every single detail of every single piece of paper in that file. I touched every single page. I stacked every file. I paid full attention to what every single piece of paper meant. And then once I did that, and I already knew some construction things and all that, I was like, well, I feel like, with this subprime market going on and these stated income loans and stuff, this isn't going to sustain. So I need to go now and
Mhm.
go stake my claim in the world, get my papers so that when the market crashes, I'll have cash and I can take advantage of the properties that went under. You know what I mean? All the foreclosures. And so that was my primary goal, to go to Nashville because I can afford it there, get up, build some properties, make some sales, come back to LA after the crash with cash so I can take advantage of the distressed properties out here. And then when the market goes up, in LA, when it goes up, it goes up. You know what I mean? $900,000.
Right.
Same house
Right.
that's 300,000, it's gonna be 900,000. You know what I mean? So that was the goal, and so that feeling right then, the future just seemed bright in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I can do this. I can do this every day. This is fun for me. You know what I mean? They have nobody telling me to, wear my clothes a certain way. I could, you know what I mean? And I've always been somebody who paid attention to leadership, qualities of such, how to lead without barking and yelling at people. You know what I mean? I try to be a proper understanding the attributes of leadership. And I was like, this I can do, and I can teach this too. I can teach this to friends. I can develop a whole army of speculators like this. And that's still a bit of the plan. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a good feeling for me just that day. I remember it clear as day. You know what I mean?
That's awesome, man.
So
That
yeah,
and
that
so,
was
I mean, as there is light, there is darkness, and
right. It accompanies it, doesn't it?
it sure
Uh,
does. And so, like, I mean, throughout these early days of accumulating all this like knowledge and you know, experience, what do you think was kind of like the most significant failure in those early days?
well, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I
you
mean,
do
we
learn
went
from
through,
it.
because I
I
mean,
know
because the
that.
time period that you were coming up in was this interesting time period. I mean, for a lot of people, specifically you and I mean, in 2007, 8, I mean, that was interesting. So, I mean, what do you think, what, like, throughout that whole time was, because there's successes and then failures, but what do you think was like the most significant failure within that little time period?
Uh, um, well, just probably not. not profiting the way, for many moons, for many years, I sat there saying to myself, like, that I didn't succeed the way I wanted to, but I had to kind of forgive myself about that and realize like that was and you helped me with that, honestly, that was the time. A lot of people got ate up
Mm.
uh, in that business. That business will spit you right out. If you, it's like the ocean. You know what I'm
Man,
saying? It'll just,
you ain't lying.
you're not supposed to be here, like, buddy. You know what I
Right,
mean?
you're not supposed to be here.
Get your ass out.
All right, all
Uh,
right.
so it kind of threw me up and spit me out. And when I finished in Nashville, I didn't really come back with the bread that I had hoped to achieve. But I learned a lot. I learned how to walk my way into properties
Mhm.
without money at that time. Uh, and I even got 2 properties without having not a dollar, not a way to pay the mortgage. And then when the market collapsed, these banks were trying to give it away. They gave me 2 properties in Atlanta,
Right.
and but I couldn't really do anything with them. So I gave them back to the bank within 30 days or something like that. I just felt like if I can get it, then I'll find a way to take care of it. And and unfortunately that one didn't work out that way. But I learned a lot, man. It ain't nothing. It can't nobody really pull the wool over my eyes about nothing when it comes to property. Nothing in life these days, honestly, bro. You know what I mean?
No, I
That's the
mean,
one thing I really like about getting old.
but you was
I mean, like specific
22. Well, how old were you at that time?
23, 22,
20,
something like
what,
that.
24,
22,
something like
23.
that?
Yeah, through those years, it was like 20, it was like 22, 23. It was like 22 through 25 or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You was basically like a kid,
Um,
just kind of still learning this stuff, you
yeah,
know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But I thought that for sure, a lot of people say I'm gonna be a millionaire by, 30. And then I'd ask them like, all right, well, how you gonna do that?
yeah,
And it seemed like a lot of people just think it's gonna magically happen to them, that
right.
they're gonna figure it out. And maybe they will. I hope they do. You know what I'm saying? But I was around a lot of that, but I knew 100% it's gonna be a millionaire before 30. And I was on pace for it. But the market collapse kind of killed all of that. And well, it didn't kill it. I wasn't in the position that I wanted to be in because I planned for the collapse. So I wasn't in the position that I wanted to be in when the collapse happened.
That's happened, right?
And yeah, yeah. So
So,
yeah, man, that was
so,
I learned a lot.
so how did you
It was all
over,
hurtful.
so how did you kind of overcome all of these challenges and that kind of came because I mean it hit a lot of people. It hit me personally. I mean, it hit my family, it hit a lot of people. Some people didn't even recover, period, from the thing. So how did
Yeah,
you kind of like overcome a lot of these market challenges that just washed upon our on our shore?
yeah, a lot of people in it. Man, I just went through, man. And there's no other way but through. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I
So I just
want
had,
to, and let me just pause there, just for anyone who's out there listening. Can you just say that again? You just did what now?
oh yeah,
You just did, huh? Say that one more time.
through is the way. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? That's the only way
yeah,
to get there. You just gotta go. You know what I mean? You gotta take those punches. You know, take some time to lick your wounds and get back out there again. You know what I mean? But through is the path. You know what I mean? That's something I learned in life for sure. You know what I mean? So like,
that's big.
so yeah, man. I just licked my wounds, and for a minute, uh, man, what did I do those years? I worked in some different industries. You know, I started working in a different business. I worked in concerts for a while. I worked with Live Nation and Insomniac, doing a production job with Coachella and with a bunch of raves, the EDC and all of that. And that job paid pretty well. But it was only, it was about two weeks out of the year. And then I had an office in a recording studio. I was getting business to come into the studio, getting a percentage. And uh Yeah, man. And I did that still with the goals of property on my mind. It still always is property for me, just because I like it. It's fun, and the potential for growth is just so huge. And you own your own time. You know, it always kind of bothered me that when I work in certain jobs, out of the many jobs I've had, the idea that like we got 24 hours in a day, right? 8 of those hours, 9 probably, are spent at the job. 2 of those hours are commuting there. And then we also sleep for 8 hours, right? So that's like 10 hours for the job, 8 hours, another 8 hours for sleep. That's 18, right? And then that leaves you with like 6 hours left to be with your family and do all of that. And a lot of those jobs ain't really paying enough in LA to maintain decent lifestyle. I mean, you got to make at least 3,000 a month out here to be broke. That's what you need to be broke.
Just to
Three
be
racks a
broke,
month.
huh? My
You
goodness.
know, that's to be broke. Yeah, I mean, you got a shitty apartment, 1,500. You got to, you know. Anyway, uh, but yeah, man. So I just switched focuses and I worked in concerts for a while, and that was fun. You know, I got to see every entertainer I've ever wanted to see my entire life, either on stage, like me watching it from on stage, or sitting in my golf cart backstage, or right up in the front with
Who was one of
everybody.
your
And
coolest performances that you got to see?
I got to see, so on some hip hop, I got to see Jay-Z and Nas perform only their first albums
Okay.
together on the stage. So first
Wow.
Nas performing Illmatic, and then it's Jay-Z performing Reasonable Doubt, right? Same stage. That was a dope one for me. I got to see Outkast when they first came back, and I got to see the Outkast sound check. So it was just me and my boy who I hired, and I got to hire all my friends too, and pay them, $300 a day to, decorate some trailers.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so I got to see Outkast when they first got back together. That was like a legendary thing, but I got to see the sound check. So it was just me and my boy in this huge field, polo field, and there's Outkast. And they basically performing for us because we out there dancing, like
And they're doing
being
sound
stupid,
checks, and it's
enjoying
just
ourselves.
you, and you're getting this like you're still doing sound checks, and you're just kind of getting this like private little performance with Outkast.
Basically, yeah. And I got to meet like all the entertainers. A funny thing is, me and Danny DeVito every year would kind of hang out at Coachella. He'd find me because I had a golf cart, and we go see Duck Sauce or whatever new group is coming up. And every year he'd come and find me, bro. It's funny, and
That's funny
and I
how
got
you
to
just like
meet,
meet
man.
people like that are just like regular old people, and then you just have a connection, and it's just like, all right, I just need to see this guy every year, man.
Yeah. It was funny because, like, he was walking and some people were like, oh my God, it's Danny DeVito. And I was sitting on a bench, not paying him no mind. I was just thinking to myself, like, oh, that's got to be horrible. Everywhere you go, you got people
Right.
just,
I know.
and,
I
and
I
then,
wouldn't want.
and
I
then I
don't
was
want
laughing.
that.
Yeah. And I was laughing and he came over, like, what are you laughing at? I was like, you, fool. Like,
Right.
I mean? And then we just started chopping it up.
Danny.
And he had on like a little duck bill over his nose. And I was
Uh,
like, "What is that for duck sauce? Are you gonna go see them?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, I want to see him too. Come with me. I got a golf cart over here." And he's
yeah.
like, "Say no more." You don't want to walk all the way across. You walk like 5 miles that day. He's an old dude.
Right.
So
Right.
then, we hit my golf cart and we drove over there, and then we pulled up in the back of the show, and and we hung out from back there. And there was also a couple moments where, like, I got a really good friend that's a producer, and he produced. Basically, you know, he produced all the music for the first Janae album and mixtape, and the first Miguel album and mixtape, and Neo too. But that was back in the day. And so, it was interesting watching these performances with him because he'd hop in my golf cart and we go, and then we, pay attention to the crowd and see how they're reacting to stuff. And seeing my buddies work, come alive on stage, that's a fun thing for me. And yeah, that was always like a fun opportunity for me to shine because people would come to Coachella and I could really give them some extra treatment. There I get free alcohol, free whatever. I'd find them in the parking lot. I'd, get them on my golf cart. I'd drive them over. I'd take them through the back exits and, drop them off to the field, give them a few drinks to enjoy themselves with. And I had an office there and it was like, it was a good thing when people would go there, pay all that money to go there, and then they come see me, you know what I'm saying? It was fun for me to do that for them. You know what I mean? Get your boy a little clout too in the community, you know what I mean? So like I was able to hire,
got a little juice up in
10
here.
friends. Yeah, a little bit of juice around here, and then just having fun, man, just being out there, having fun. And my job was such that when the show started, we're done working. So I can go see, everybody. And that was always fun for me, I saw Prince play a legendary solo for if you play guitar. Yeah, if you play guitar, then there's a legendary. It's my favorite guitar solo ever. Prince playing a guitar solo on a Radiohead song called Creep, and I got a chance to see that from right there. And I don't know. I've pretty much seen all my favorite musicians live, and I'm a big fan of music, and I got to meet lots of yeah. So that was fun,
So
yeah,
I mean,
and
so
more. There's a
what?
lot.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, I mean, that's an exciting.
Left hand or it fell out in front of me. It was hilarious. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, it's an exciting ride. You know, what I mean, we go from dip our hand into real estate, and then we're out here kicking it with Danny DeVito, and then now we're back.
yeah,
Now we back.
yeah.
To real
Now we
estate
back.
speculation. So, I mean, so what motivated kind of just like revamping the whole spec in business?
Yeah, well, so the same motivation to do property is there. And the thing about being a property investor is that, you really just need the money to invest. And I think a lot of people, I think it's just a perspective thing, right? Like really the person who is at the top of the totem pole in the transactions is the buyer and the seller, the agent is down here, the broker is this, everybody's kind of down here. And if the owner called himself an investor as opposed to an owner, and he realized that he's the one that kind of has the power in the whole thing. So the thing about property was that like I've always kept abreast on it. I've always studied and paid attention to the markets and stuff. But you can't really do nothing without the paper. And except nowadays there is a couple other angles. And so really, I'm just really giving it another shot, bro. You know what I mean? I'm just giving it another shot to go at it. We're going to start wholesaling some properties. We're going to do the speculating again. I think the main motivation is that I found some avid investor group. So I can now kind of, find some decent deals. Like that was the part I got really good at, was talking to the homeowner, getting them to trust me, getting them to understand that I'm here to help and I'm probably their best option. And so I've always been pretty good at that. And so now that I can piece together some properties and shop out the deals or put a nice one sheet together and put a nice package together, send the deals out to multiple investors that are motivated and interested, that's very inspiring. It's confidence inspiring to me. Yeah. So now that I have that opportunity, I'm going to definitely take advantage of it and go at it again. Give it a good shot.
So if an investor came across this, I mean, how would they get in contact with you, and what are you providing with for these investors, in this?
All right. So yeah. So once I find out the investors wish list, then what we're trying to do is basically find Properties that are basically like undervalued kind of a thing. So we're looking for distressed properties, probates, tax delinquencies. People who died don't have heirs. People who died who do have heirs, but those heirs can't afford the mortgage. And just property that we can wholesale. A distressed vacant property that sits in a good neighborhood. Hopefully, something that sits like a single family residence that sits on a multi-zone lot, or older residence that sits on a commercially zoned lot, things in opportunity zones. That's where we're really going to focus the opportunity on. And let's say the property is worth 100,000, and we're going to do a little bit of wholesaling as well, right? So we're going to go over there and say, are you interested in this? If the property's worth 100,000, if the property's worth 500,000, I'm able to get them to sell it for 400,000. I can sell the paper to the investors, or we can do a full construction deal, things of that nature. So I guess what value we bring to it is that we're just going to bring them quality properties that no investor would really want to say no to. And present it in a easy way for them to, make an informed decision. That's the goal. So we're going to be the footwork out there, where they can just kind of sit back at the desk, get enough information for them to make an informed decision, and then they can say yay or nay, So that's a primary goal that we're working on. And if I can crack some, maybe the person really just needs to refi, and maybe they have some bad experiences or whatnot, I can send that work to my buddy Mike right here, work it out. But the goal is just to find good.
Do all types of loans for you in all states.
Yeah. So, we're just going to try to offer them some value like that, man. Going to try to bring them good properties that are zoned on, because if it's zoned for a bigger lot, then they can make a lot more money on it in the long run. You know what I mean? So like even just today, I was looking at these two properties that are next to each other. One is a fourplex, one is a single family home, but it's zoned on land that holds 16, like R16 or something like that. And in LA, that's pretty big. You know what I mean? So, we're going to work on that.
So 2008, 2024, two completely different markets. So what do you think has changed, like, I guess, in your eyes from then and now?
Well, it's a little harder to jump into property. At least, right, there's no subprime market anymore. And then there's no assumptions anymore either. You can't assume the loan of a property anymore. You have to pay the whole thing off. But there is opportunity out there nonetheless. I think the number is like 52. Like there's 52 ways to profit off of a single real estate transaction, something like that. And as far as the differences goes, I don't see too much of a difference. I do know that in LA, I've noticed a trend that wherever the subway or the trains go, those property values rise immediately. I saw it happen not too long ago at the in this like 2 square miles, right, between La Brea and Crenshaw, on a street called Jefferson and on a street called Washington, right there. Those properties, were commercial properties. They were 800,000 when they were first for sale. By the next year, they were $1 million. By the next year, they were $2 million. By the next year, they were $4 million. Now those properties are $7 million. If you would have purchased one of those things 7 years ago, it came up. So I'm going to focus along those lines. That's a trend right there that I see a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to focus on those areas. And see if I can't crack some paper out of it, man.
So how do you like to stay kind of like updated with these type of trends that you're seeing in your local market? And because you're in the LA,
oh yeah,
right? Like what's kind of your market that you like to cover?
Probably. Well, that's where I'm going to try to really focus on is everything around LA. LA is in a kind of there's a lot of what you would call gentrification going on in some of these places on Crenshaw and all that. So I'm just going to try to hop on that wave, basically. I'm looking at where there's new construction going. I'm looking at where all the rail lines are going, and that's where I see the biggest rise in pricing
Mhm.
up there, right? To try to take advantage of the of the rise in equity in that area, in those areas. So I'll probably mostly stay around the hood, around Crenshaw area or even Watts, just and the way I pay attention is just by, since I've been doing appraisal for so long with my mother, I kind of have a nose for what, what areas are rising, what areas are falling, what the price points are over here. Plus, part of that job was me in a car every day driving to 30 different houses and photographing them so that she can put those comps into her reports. So I got a chance to drive around, everywhere through LA in the deepest parts of the neighborhoods and in the deepest barrios to the biggest, most expensive houses in LA and the Hollywood Hills and Bel Air. And I kind of know where everything is. Everywhere I've gone, I've already been. That was every day. That was an everyday job, photographing about 30 houses in several different locations every day. So I kind of have a nose for where it's happening, and there's certain clues when you go over there. You look for opportunity zones as well. But I just noticed like where there's new construction, certain types of construction, that's where I'm paying attention to. So, certain neighborhoods, like one area, one zip code that's maybe starting to peak a little bit is 90016. And I do it by zip codes, you know what I mean? And yeah, man, I'm gonna try to just really focus around the hood. Uh, that seems to be a good place for someone like me to begin. You know what I mean? And some areas in Burbank, some small, neighborhoods over in Burbank
I like Burbank.
where they're knocking them down.
Mhm.
Yeah. Where they are North Hollywood too, where they're
Mhm.
knocking down some of those little small homes and they're building this particular style of home that seems to be popular right now. It'll be a single family residence or a duplex or like a fourplex, but it's very tall. So it'll be, it's got a small footprint and there's like 4 levels. And that's like a new style of home in LA. Everything is being built like that. That seems to be what's selling.
Mhm.
So yeah, so there's areas that I've marked off from driving around and photographing these properties and just paying attention to a lot.
So some people would call that,
So
I've heard other people call that, refer that to as like driving for dollars, essentially. And pretty much that sounds like what Chris
yeah, but I wasn't.
is just like, look, man, I'm driving
Yeah, I
around.
wasn't paying for dollars.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right. And I'm
tried to
just
do that.
saying, like the activity in which you're doing is like you're driving around neighborhoods and you're familiarizing yourself with these neighborhoods and you're just paying attention pretty much. And it don't really cost other than some gas to pay attention, you know. So I just
Yeah,
thought that was a cool little gem. Um, so I mean, for
yeah,
anyone who's thinking about like if they come across this video and they hear your story and kind of hear what you're getting into and what you're doing, like what would be your advice to uh someone looking to start or even restart like a real estate speculation business, or just a specking business, or just kind of getting into that type of field? What would be your advice to
yeah.
someone
Well,
into that?
well, property business is not for the faint of heart. You know, a lot of that's something I noticed too when I would talk to developers. They all got a little bit of grit to them. They're all a little bit gangster. You know what I'm saying? And like, um, yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, man. And as far as advice goes, you know, um, I'd like, I still haven't really succeeded in the areas that I'd like, in my personal opinion. You know what I mean? But I would, I would just say that yeah, just you got to really know if you're going to get a loan. Let's say you're going to buy a house and flip it or something. You got to really pay attention to the small details of the contract. You know what I mean? Make sure that that escrow account gives you access to those funds early on. That's a mistake. That's something I would have done differently. When you're dealing with contractors, um, I think a good way to gauge how much it should be is you take like the cost of the materials and you double it, uh, depending on the, take the cost of the materials and double it depending on the type of labor that's involved. And that's like a gauge. And I'll let these contractors, I'll let these contractors muscle you around, boy. You got to get rid of them if if
I
showing
got a
any tricks
I got
in
a
the
family member
beginning.
dealing with one that's a little unruly right now. So I hope she
You got to
hears
get
this
rid of them
and keeps the hope
because
alive.
yeah. I remember there was one contractor. He was working on a house next door to mine, and they installed an air conditioning unit. Cost like 3,500 to put that air conditioning unit in there. And then they came in the middle of the night and they stole it. And then
Oh,
they told the homeowner, "Oh, well, we need the 3,500 for another one. Your shit was stolen." And then they
I
gave
don't
him
want
another
that type of game.
3,500, and then they put the same technician down, and they kept doing that. The fool even came knocking on my door, being like, "Hey man, that back door of yours looks just like my back door." I mean, get your like I had to tell that boy like, "Well, you better get on that side of the fence." Cause, say I know what y'all do already. You already told me the game. You know what I mean? So you be careful with these contractors. Find a good one and stick with them and take care of them, man. Do what you can do yourself, save some funds. You know. Uh, And yeah, as of now, you know, I would just say to really pay attention to that contract. You want to be able to pull from the funding, and what else, man? I mean, what do you think, Mike? You were there with me. Did you notice anything that we could have done better a little bit if we had an opportunity when we were working on that house on Joseph Street?
Yeah.
And
No, I don't think there was anything we could have done better.
yeah, me neither, folks. Yeah.
I don't think there's
Man.
nothing we could
I
have
had to
done
tell
better,
myself
man.
that, bro. 'Cause as a person who likes to hold themselves accountable for years, I was like, well, it's all me. I did something wrong, but I didn't do anything wrong, man. We did the best of what we had. We didn't even have much,
Yeah.
and we did it. You know.
I mean,
So yeah,
honestly, I would say that it was probably one of the biggest and greatest accomplishments that I've ever done. And I know it sounds,
yeah,
you know, not fulfilling, but it does mean something because regardless of whatever the outcome was, we started something and we finished something,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the market had its own agenda. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it really didn't care
And that
about.
was funny too, because a lot of people actually, they could have, people complain about the marketing stuff, but for a lot of people, that was an opportunity for them to really win.
Oh,
You
big
know,
time. It
and,
created lots of new millionaires out of that opportunity. Big
yeah,
time.
man. Like a lot of them, they get the property, they get the adjustable rate mortgage. Like that's what I think was one of the factors that led to it, right? They did a lot of these margin loans. It's the same thing as the Great Depression. The Great Depression was a margin call, and in this case, it was a marginal loan. It was an adjustable rate mortgage, right? And you get the loan. You only pay interest for the first 5 years. What you were supposed to do in that time was, add value to the property and try to refinance to a 30-year fix before your balloon payment came due. Right. But with the money that a lot of people saved and all of that type of stuff, they just bought boats and new cars and went on vacations and all that. You know what I mean? And, you know, and that's okay. But I kind of felt like the industry could have done a better job at educating people about that.
Yeah.
Um, but that was their plan, and then when you see all the banks collapse and the only last remaining bank is Chase, which is JP Morgan, right? It's the same bank that do with the Great Depression, back then, JP Morgan and them, uh, you know, yeah, man, market's gonna do what it's gonna do, man.
Right.
I
You just got
definitely
in
think
at,
though
at
that
an
market's
interesting.
bad. When the market's low, that's where I think opportunity exists for a person on the rise. That's the best time for a person on the rise whenever the market is considered bad. When the market's considered bad for a rich man, it's great for the new guy, and even for the rich man, you just adjust.
Depending
Things
on
are
what your
low right.
timing is like, right?
I'm sorry.
Just depending on, I guess, what your timing is like.
Yeah, right. So, I think though, definitely put some away for a rainy day. I tell you this, I'm not going to be buying a bunch of single family properties. The only thing I want is rental properties, because when the market's bad, those are gonna fill up. That's all I want is income generating properties, hopefully 32 units or more. And but I'll start with what I got to start with to get there. That's the primary goal.
So
I'm saying.
as we kind of like, bringing this thing, wrapping this thing up, man. I mean, any kind of like exciting upcoming projects that are coming in your way that you're working on right now?
Just starting to the speculation business right now. Just getting that up, and yeah, man, that's the most exciting thing I got going on right now. Just getting that, just building this here speculation business.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just building this speculation business, man, and trying to and getting back out there and specking. That was fun for me. I like doing that every single day, just sitting there in the car with friends, finding good properties. It's like shopping, you know what I mean? Kind of a thing. So I'm excited about that for sure.
That's
You
awesome.
know,
So
about
so
it.
tell the folks, I mean, like how can someone get in contact with you if they are interested in learning about deals, about investment opportunities in the LA region, Southern California region, and really all over the country. Chris has access to hell of a researcher, very resourceful all around when it comes to just real estate, very knowledgeable. So how would they get in contact with you and
You
reach
can
out?
simply just call me. You can call me 310-294-0762. All right. We don't have any like we're putting together a landing page, a web-based platform. But as of now, you can just call me, speak to me directly, and or you can email me, at chris.thomas310 at Gmail. Chris.thomas310 at Gmail. But really just call me. Call your boy. We'll talk.
He ain't making it hard for me, man.
Yeah. Like, people these days, they be like, "Oh, can I get your Instagram?" I was like, "Nah, you can get my number. Bro. Call me, bro. Just call me." I'm
All right.
all this non-interpersonal communication
I know.
these days. You know what I mean? It's like that. See, that's what it seems like it's happening. They're like, "How can we communicate with people but make it slower
Right.
and more difficult and less personal?"
And less
And that's the
connection, right? That less personable is the key, right?
yeah. So we'll text. So now a conversation that would have taken 2 minutes takes 30 minutes because you got to wait for the person to come back and do all of
You
this.
gotta
Or
like
like,
type, and then your thumb is too big for the keyboard, and
yeah,
you're
and then
trying to
you got
push
to go
the
back
S,
and
and
then
you're
it's
pushing the
all
T.
correct. Now you said the same. Now you said the wrong thing to the wrong person. Yeah, man. But yeah, as of now, just give us a call, man. 310-294-0762. And if you're an investor and you want somebody out there beating the pavement for you, give us a call.
Awesome, man. Well, good deal, man. Well, there you have it, man. And that's our episode here from the ground up. And it was awesome talking to you, my brother Chris. Thank you so much for just
You
giving
as well, brother. I appreciate you, man. Always.
and we gotta do this again, man, because we're gonna I know these people are gonna want to hear some updates and see how the success is and just learn about new opportunities that are coming up in your market and see how we can further the cause. So I appreciate you, man, and everyone else out there, you know what it is. Thank you guys for checking out from the ground up. All right, peace.